All right, 5/4 is the slope formula. You are going to love this. It makes what we've been doing so much easier. I want to do a quick little review at the beginning though. Get my computer set right too. All right, so slope we've been saying equals rise over run. I want to kind of derive the equation somewhat from this first thing here, but if we were to go through and say, all right, I have these 2 points, what's the slope between the 2 points? We've been usually doing kind of a triangle like this. So I'll maybe do that on top. And if we want to figure out, well, what's the rise? Well, the rise, I'm starting out here. That height is going to be the y value. So that's a 3. This height here is going to be a 12. So I'm really, when I get the rise, I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between those two. So I do a 12 minus 3. And so I get a 12 minus 3 divided by the run, and maybe I'll switch colors for runs. We'll say the run then is going to be going from like this x value of 2 to an x value of 7. Say the run. So how much does it change in that side to side? Up here on the top it goes over 5 and 5 to the right, but we get that by doing 7 minus 2. So that gives us then our 5 down below and our 9 up above. So 9/5 is going to be the slope. Well, there's an easier way to do that. If we look at what we just did right there, I labeled up some of these points. So I have slope. I'd encourage you to write this in red or someplace you can put a box around it. This is the formula. It's going to make it life way nicer. But when we did that 12 minus 3, if you look, if you take your points and just label them, it doesn't really matter which one you start with, but I'm going to say this is x sub 1, my first x value. This is y sub 1, my first y. This is x sub 2, this is y sub 2. And you'll get that same answer of 9 over 5 no matter which point you call x1, y1, and which point you call x2, y2. But when we did that, if you look at my labeling, I did 12 minus 3. Well, 12 was y2, and 3 was my y1. I'm kind of looking right here. So I have y2 and y1. So y2 minus, talking while I try to write. So y2 minus y1 in the numerator. And I'll erase my circles there. Then my next one's my 7 minus 2. That would be a x2 minus x1. So x2 minus x sub 1. So right here is the slope formula. And you can use this anytime you know 2 points. Makes life way better than what we've been doing. Because you don't need to try to look at the graph and figure it out. If you just have points, you can go for it. From graphs, though, there's going to be some in the book that ask you to do it from the graph, and quite honestly, I find it kind of obnoxious. But let's say we could see how it works. So I'm going to take this point up here, so that's negative 1, 2, 3, 4. So negative 4, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So negative 4, 6. And I'll pick another point it seems to go through. Actually, my line's not perfect. That top one was a little bit below, so I'll go with this one. It's a little bit below. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So negative 4, negative 6. So if you have 2 points like this, or you have a line, you can figure it out using rise over run, really. But my instructions at the top, I'm going to say find good points and calculate. So please, it's going to be way easier if you do 2 things. First, write out the equation. If nothing else, I'm going to ask you to know this from memory for the test. And if in these homework questions you've taken the, what was that, 5 seconds to quick write this out, you're going to know it from memory the day before the test. The other thing that helps people is label your points. Oops, that is an example of how not to label it. So if you have one point be x1, y1, the other point be x2, y2, and like I mentioned before, it doesn't matter which one is x1, y1, which one is x2, y2. But you have to make sure you always start with the same point. So if I do y2 minus y1, so if I start with this point and do negative 6 minus 6 here, then when I do my denominator, I have to start with this 4. I can't start with this negative 4 over there. That's a real common mistake. So x2 is a 4 minus x1 is a negative 4. So that's why I encourage people to write the x1, y1 so they actually start with the same point each time. All right, so if I do those, negative 6 minus 6 gives me a negative 12. 4 minus a negative 4 is a positive 8. So both of those I could divide by 4. When I do that, I get a negative 3 over 2. Often they'll leave slopes as a fraction, so negative 3 over 2, but you could also say negative 1.5 and get full credit. So that's kind of how to get it from a graph, just find some points. But often in the homework you're just going to see here's 2 points. Then you can use the equation without having to try to figure out like what does it look like on a graph. Last thing, find the slope from an equation. Well, I do the same thing we did from the graph. So find 2 points and calculate. So this will work for any equation. With this type here, we went through and found the x and y intercepts and found that that's easiest. But you could put in any number. You could put in a 1 for x and find y, put in a negative 17 for x and find y. But these are easy. And if you haven't been in my class, then happen to be stumbled upon this video, here's why. So if you take this 0 and put it in for x, 8 times 0 is 0. So that's just kind of like gone. And you're left with negative 4y equals 16. So to find the 16, find y, divide both sides by negative 4, and you get a negative 4. So then we could do that same thing for this other one. I could take the 0 here and put it in for y. When I do that, this drops out. So I have 8x minus 0, or just 8x equals 16. Divide both sides by 8, and you get a 2. Now we can go back to that same equation we were doing before. So I'm going to call this point x1, y1, this point x2, y2. Again, go through, quick write this down. You'll know it from memory. You'll be less likely to make mistakes. Everybody's happy, including your teachers. All right, so y2 minus y1. So you have 0 minus a negative 4. All divided by x2, so 2 minus 0. So that ends up giving me a positive 4 over 2. So the slope then is 2. That's it for the section. So use this equation, label your things. I think you're going to find you really like it. So have a good one.